welcome to this first podcast of the series that we announced, the Reward Navigator series. Today, joining us are Bruce and PJ, and we'll be talking about some of the research that we did and some of the findings that we think is interesting to discuss. So maybe starting with some figures, our latest international research highlights a number of things that we think are interesting. Only 45% of all employees believe their current reward policy positively impacts employee motivation. And only 39% of employees feel sufficiently recognized and appreciated for their performance and contribution. I thought that was remarkable, maybe stunning even, or shocking, I don't know. Maybe starting with you, Bruce, how do you read those results, or how do you feel about those results?
It gives me two feelings, to be very honest. And the first feeling is I'm not that shocked. For me, a rewards policy in the minds of the people, it's really what you get at the end of the day. It's your compensation, it's your cash components, and probably the benefits that you have.
Yes.
But in essence, a reward policy, we call it the ABC, also the A of atmosphere. Atmosphere, benefits, compensation. And compensation and benefits, that's not the super motivational driver. What you hear, at least what we hear in our organization, when you go and you talk and you have lunches with our colleagues, when you have workshops with the colleagues, when you are together with the people of our workers' council, 90% always say the atmosphere is what makes me tick. The atmosphere is what makes me stay here at SD Worx. And so a part of me is not shocked with the fact that 45% that's the driver. And in a way, luckily, money is not your only driver. And of course, the second question is, do you define reward as purely the benefits and the cash, or do you also see that together with the atmosphere and everything around?
So we're talking strategy here, PJ. What Bruce said basically is get the pay out of the way. There are many other things that matter for people to actually engage with an organization.
Yeah, correct.
Like which ones, for instance, and how do you build that in your strategy?
Yeah, good question. Reward is much broader than only the cash that you receive at the end of the month. Reward is about base salary, variable, and that's what we call the cash, but really also about the benefits that you provide as a company, the atmosphere that you bring, the amount of holidays that you give as a company. So as a company, you have to look at reward first in an objective way, and secondly, you have to always make sure that reward is in line with your company ambition and company strategy. How we translate that at SD Worx is, Bruce already alluded to it, our fair and care ABC policy. And first on the fair and care, what we mean with that is with fair words, we really want to make sure that we are giving a fair salary and compensation to our employees in return to what they bring on a day-to-day basis to the company, for the employer. And with care, and that's where we want to make a difference as SD Worx, is we don't focus only on those cash elements, we really also focus on benefits. And what we mean with that is we want to be like a warm blanket for employees, making sure that they can live comfortably. For example, when things are not going so well health-wise, when people approach their end of employment via the pension plans that we offer to our employees, or our extra holidays, vacation days that we give to employees. So we as SD Worx, we really don't want to focus only on base salary. It's also something that we cannot do because at SD Worx, we are a people-driven organization. It's the biggest cost that we have. Talent, knowledge, know-how, that's really the biggest cost that we have. So we can't really differentiate on that part. So that's why we really want to differentiate on the B, the benefits, what do you get extra, and the A, the atmosphere, what makes you proud to work at SD Worx. Linking that to the numbers that you brought forward, that's also why I'm not really surprised that a lot of people are not very happy with the reward policy in their company. People then, in my opinion, answer the question about cash and compensation and not always answer the benefits and the atmosphere part.
We'll talk more about benefits in the third podcast that we're doing. We'll talk also about financial health. What you said, it's a big part of the cost of a company, the human capital cost. I do want to come back to that word that you used, fairness. So how do we evaluate? How do we assess? How do we measure fairness as what is a fair salary? I think that's a pretty important question. We also know from a lot of other surveys that we did, pay is still important for people. So how do we measure fairness?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because your question is really about your objectivity about compensation. That's really difficult, because when I look at my own paycheck, I'm not objective. If I go, for example, on website like Glassdoor or on Google and check on hey, what's an HR director earning, that's not an objective criteria. So how do you get fairness? Is by making a reward objective. And how that we do that as SD Worx is we have a huge framework. We are focused on HR services, we are focused on payroll services. We are also an IT company through our software and platform that we provide, for example. So we are a very diverse company. So how we make that objective is that every function at SD Worx is rated and belongs to a sort of family. We have a rating system. That means that every function can be plotted on that system. And then through market data, objective compensation data that we receive from external providers, we make sure that every person that is filling a position, that we can measure that position's pay through the individual's pay. And in that way, we make sure that everyone receives is fairly compensated and receives a fair amount of compensation in return for the things that they bring to SD Worx, regardless if you're in the payroll business or in the broader HR service business or in IT business. In that way, by linking it to job families and functions and objective market data, we make sure that everyone is paid fairly.
Okay. We'll get back to that also in podcast number 4 when we talk about pay equity and pay transparency. Bruce, coming back to you again, if we talk strategy, we talked about compensation, there are more elements to it. But I also think it's something that we learn along the way, how to move forward with this. Is there something like evaluation in between? Are we rethinking at certain points what we are doing now? Do we take feedback from the organization, from the different countries, how we can progress?
It's constantly. Fair and care ABC. So fair, as PJ said, you have internal fairness, and then you also have fairness externally. Internally, if you have the same job in the same family in a different country, how do you compare that? And then externally, you have a strategy where you say we're going to pay the average, and then you need to compare that externally. That makes the fairness. Of course, we rethink that. Is that enough or not? We, as a company, we are a European company, so you need to rethink that. Is that enough or not? In every of our countries, we are rethinking how can you optimize the pay levels. You have a component of variable pay as well. How do you optimize variable pay? Is it purely by team? Is it part individual? Is it a combination of both? For which jobs? Is it what? And then you organize working groups with the people. And let's not do that top down. Organize working groups with the people. And then bring everything together in a most optimal way, knowing that you can never please everybody in rewards. Never.
But I can imagine also that with the significant growth that we've made throughout the different countries, fairness externally becomes, again, it's tougher. Because it's a comparative issue. We don't only have to compare to what's happening in a market. The markets will be comparing them as well.
Yes, agreed. And some countries have more variable than other countries. So you need to allow for enough local flexibility as long as the total package is fair. The total ABC needs to be fair. That's important. But indeed, as SD Worx, we acquire 3-4 companies every year with a different pay policy. It takes at least a year before it gets aligned.
Maybe commenting on what Bruce said about the new countries, or what you said about countries evolve, get bigger, markets evolve, get bigger, or more clients, etc., and do you adopt your strategy? I think one thing is really important here is that your reward strategy always follows your company strategy. It's like a tanker. Rewards like a tanker that you can't turn quickly, or you shouldn't turn quickly. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to have that natural reflex of always evaluate what are you doing, is that still the right thing to do? And the strategy of a company doesn't change overnight, but business reality can change overnight. So that's why your reward policy needs to be solid and following your company strategy. But along the way, and that's happening via conversation that you have with the business leaders, you need to adapt slightly and also make a plan on, if this happens, what are we going to offer then? And with these rules, then you can make sure that you're also prepared for the future and that you're not a static running behind the facts all the time.
And that's what makes it a strategy and not just a policy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to add?
When I started at SD Worx, that was the beginning of 2021. That was, I think, one of the hardest items in my job. The constant feedback about Reward and what we were doing, because like Bruce said, we're an HR company where that 6,000 people find themselves entitled to have an opinion about Reward, and I had really some difficulties with that because you're trying to doing your job and you're just getting constant feedback, and Bruce said feedback is a gift, but that came quite hard at the beginning. But by having a story ready, making that visible and telling that same message all the time and sticking to it, and also when you highlight and when you're listening to people and when you're making a change and taking that feedback into account, that's how you bring that consistent message and also gain the trust from business as well.
Thank you, gentlemen, for this first podcast already. I remember 3 things mainly. First, build a reward strategy on your business strategy. Very important. Build it not only on compensation, but build it also on benefits and on atmosphere. Last but not least, take in the feedback from your organization members, but also stick with the plan. Thank you very much, and we'll talk next time.